Another episode of Do What You Love. I am your host, Jeff Kirkshin, and I get to do that every single week on this podcast. I am truly blessed to have an opportunity to talk to another person in my life that I've had an amazing opportunity to meet and get to know, who does what they love. And that's what this podcast is all about. So for anybody subscribing, whether it's on Spotify or iTunes, whatever it might be, we really appreciate you. Or you're watching on YouTube so you can see the awesome guest that we have this week. It is my good friend and Bally Sports Southwest reporter, host, amazing talent. Sarah Merrifield is on the podcast this week. What's up, my friend?
Hello. It is so good to see you.
I know, it's been a minute. You're just absolutely crushing it. And I forgot to add in the intro, she is an Emmy Award winner, folks, okay?
Yep, that's pretty fun. But thank you. All the accolades, unnecessary as they may be, but I'm honored to be a part of your podcast. So thanks for having me on.
Well, of course, and I appreciate you taking the time. You know, for those that might not know you, how we're connected is we met our first year at Syracuse University, both broadcast journalism majors, and immediately, and I hate to say it like this, but it's such a competitive field, the one that we're both in. You as a sports reporter and host and anchor, and me in radio. But you kind of learned at the very beginning, I don't want to say the people who were more talented than others, but the people that were more willing to work for it. And you were one of those people I looked up to, even though we were the same year, because I was like, this girl's going places, and I want to, what is in her blood that makes her the way she is? And I'm no surprise that we're now, 6 years out of college, and you still have that spirit within you. You continue to do what you love, and now you're in Texas with Bally Sports Southwest. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And as you were just talking, I'm thinking about all the flashback memories I'm having from Syracuse of, freshman year and your ukulele and all these things. I'm thinking, oh man, time flies, right? But no, I mean, it really is, this industry's changed so much, even being in it for as long as we've both been in it. And just the other day I had, someone reach out to me post-grad and looking for advice, and it's hard, it's competitive, but at the same time, the way we kind of both made our way to where we are now is really starting small and putting in the grind work and learning from our mistakes. And I think that both important in the process of growing, but also, the relationships you build at the small market level and whatnot. So, I wouldn't trade my journey for the world, even though it was really hard, but I'm loving being in Dallas, Texas with the new branded Bally Sports Southwest, and getting an opportunity to do high school football. Texas Rangers just finished their season. Dallas Mavericks are starting up soon. We got a variety of different other NBA teams in the area, and then obviously the Dallas Stars as well. But really, really fun region to be a part of. And this is going on year 5 out here. So yeah, it's kind of wild.
Well, I do want to revisit one thing you mentioned. I am truly honored that, looking back to your college years, my ukulele is a memory that has been had in your life surrounding me.
Yes, among other things, Jeff. But yeah, that ukulele, I remember I forget where we were in Flint Hall on Mount Olympus. I think that was what it was, the Mount. Flint Hall, we were sitting there, and you had either written an original song or something, and you were playing it for me, and I kept thinking back. I'm like, man, that's the perfect instrument for me, because I've never played an instrument. Well, I did play an instrument, but I never stuck with anything. And I'm thinking my fingers are so tiny that would be the perfect instrument to play.
Well, okay, so I grew up playing the piano, and here is the sole reason why I started playing the ukulele. Well, there was really 2 big reasons. So I played piano my whole life. I still do. I've played at piano bars. I sing and I perform. When I was 10 years old, I told my piano teacher, because I was so uninterested in Bach and Beethoven and the whole world, and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I was 10, which is really dangerous thought for a 10-year-old. But I said, I want to be able to go to a bar with my friends and play music that everybody wants to sing to. And I was only 10, which I think my parents should have seen a little red flag there. What is he thinking? And so I was like, cool, before I go to college, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. Because the guy in the dorm with the guitar is everybody's friend. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. And I picked up a guitar, a friend of mine's guitar. And this thing, Sarah, made me look like even smaller than I already am. And I was like, you
shy.
can't even see me behind this guitar. So my other buddy had a ukulele, my buddy Jensen, and so I was like, man, I can figure this out. And so I learned how to play it, and now I look like I have Hawaiian roots, basically.
It's amazing. And you learned an instrument. I mean, honestly, I was pretty jealous because I never had the persistence to stick with an instrument. But recently, I quarantined, right? Everyone wants those hobbies. I actually had an impulse purchase of a beginner guitar, and I obviously know nothing about sizing of guitars, and this thing arrived, and it was like way too big. I couldn't even put my fingers around the neck of the instrument or whatever. So I said, you know what? This might be a sign that I was never meant to be a performer, maybe in a past life, but musically, I was not that.
You are a reporter, an anchor, a skilled writer, yet in quarantine, you wanted to pick up a guitar and go back to your music roots. And so did you return the guitar because it was too big, or did you get any chords? Or
I gifted it to my middle brother Jack, who is actually very talented at musical instruments. He self-taught himself piano. He owns a couple of different varieties of guitar, including a ukulele, actually. He's the more creative one. However, he's also an athlete, so he did both, and I think he's actually living in San Diego. But I gifted it to him because I figured, A, you have bigger hands, and B, it might get more use from you than it would from me.
Right. And I think your brother, I haven't had the opportunity to meet, but through knowing you now, oh my gosh, we've known each other 10 years, and seeing this family, the fact that he is as tall, athletic, handsome as and he can play instruments is not fair to us who are less gifted athletically and play instruments.
Yeah, he's a real catch. He's also single, ladies.
Wow. Out of San Diego, not too far from Las Vegas for people listening here. Yep. So I will work on that. We'll get him on the morning show and maybe see if we can get him a date and make it happen.
He'll be all in. Very successful business guy. Anyways, enough about that.
Well, I love that you're like.
Kill me if I was saying this out loud.
What is your age difference, the two of you?
So Jack and I are 2 years apart. I'm the oldest of the three of our siblings, and then Ted is the youngest, and he and I are 7 years apart. And I actually just saw Ted yesterday because Texas OU weekend was this weekend in Dallas, and that is by far my favorite weekend of the entire football season because it's just so much camaraderie and fun. As much as I love my Syracuse connection, no one knows where Syracuse is in Texas. So I have gravitated towards becoming a Longhorn fan, and Saturday's game was pretty intense. But Ted is 7 years, Jack is 2, so we have kind of a range there for the brothers.
Well, I thought it was interesting because I thought you guys were about the same difference between me and my older sister. So I have an older sister, 2 years apart. We were 2 years apart in school. So that was high school, junior, freshman, sophomore, senior. And then we ended up going to college together. And it's funny because on the radio this morning, actually, I told a story, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
All
but
right,
just to kind of tell of our relationship, my sister went to a party, and she kind of invited me along a little bit, but we didn't tell our parents. And it was simply so I could drive us all home because I was I wasn't drinking. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And but I was still in high school. Like, I had just gotten my driver's license, so I didn't even think I was allowed to have more than one person in the car with me, like per Maryland rules. But I was so cool.
Okay, never mind.
I was invited to like a senior party, and I was a junior. They were all going to college, and I was like going to be a junior. And so ultimately, my mom kind of found out about it and was happy that I had just kept my sister safe and wanted to make sure she was okay. Do you two, what kind of relationship did you guys have in high school? Were you bailing each other out and, being there for each other? Or was there a little bit, were you guys too close in age?
So it's funny because Jack and I were super close up to the point of where we both were really becoming teenagers. And then not that we were ever not close, but we just kind of did our own thing and we had separate interests and we just school overtook our activities and whatever. And then by the time we got back to I was a senior and he was a sophomore in high school, we were close enough in age and I was, the driving senior or whatever, taking all of him and his soccer buddies home from soccer practice in my Toyota Land Cruiser mom mobile. So it definitely got better over the years, but there was definitely a period of time, maybe like middle school, that really awkward age for siblings when you're a boy and a girl, and Ted hadn't yet shown up yet. So it was just awkward, I guess. But now we have a great adult relationship, and I love that part. And then, for me and Ted, being so much older, I mean, when I left the house for college, like at 18, Ted was young. I mean, he was in like 4th grade. So I didn't really get to see his like high school years essentially.
Right.
And it's almost more fun for me now that I get to be this, because we're only 3 hours apart. Austin, he's at UT in Austin, and that's only 3 hours from Dallas. So I get to kind of serve as this older sister role in a adult capacity. And
Right.
I think it's kind of fun because he's actually turning 21 in like 3 weeks. So I get to celebrate with him and do the big sibling stuff. And that's pretty fun. So I mean, relationship wise, I think every sibling relationship kind of goes through those kinds of ups and downs and weird phases. But at the same time, I mean, we've kept so close, kept so in touch that it's hard not to be that close. But yeah, I love those boys. They're great.
If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and not seeing on YouTube, you have to see our guest Sarah Maryfield like beaming with pride like a mother about her younger brothers. It is like literally the cutest thing.
In my office of them, I swear I talk about them way too much, but yeah, I'm so proud of the both of them, and Ted especially, because he's growing into like a young adult, and it's weird watching that happen as an adult. So it's pretty special. I think I'm gonna go surprise him on Wednesday to go watch him play soccer in his last home club soccer game. So that'll be fun.
Oh, what a good sister. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. So we've talked enough about the family. We've even talked a little bit about Syracuse. I want to talk about you. You are an accomplished reporter, anchor, host in the sports world, and that is an extremely competitive one to get in. And, I know from our experience in our previous conversations, you have very big aspirations in this. And I've always seen you in my little circle as the next big sideline host, reporter, whatever it might be in the sports world, because I think you've got that drive. For people who are looking to take that first step in, you mentioned learning lessons very early, making mistakes. What other advice do you have for specifically young women who want to get into this field that you have seen so much success in already?
Well, firstly, thank you. That's really kind of you. You don't have to pump my tires that much, Jeff.
Listen, I wouldn't bring somebody on the podcast I didn't think was doing what they love and I was a fan of their work. If I was like, I've always known you to be a little bit of a slacker, but I guess you're doing well. Tell us about your experience. I would not bring you on if that was
our podcast. Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, don't know how to go here. But no, seriously, you've seen success. What's some advice you would give some young women looking to break into the industry?
Man, it's so funny to think back on, career milestones and think, what did I do to get there? And I think, my very first job out of school was local sports reporter / weekend sports anchor in Abilene, Texas. And I don't know the current population size of this town, but it was market 128 at the time that I was, I got a job out there. And, it was just a grind. I mean, it's a 2-man sports department. I'm doing the reporting at, my sports director would do the weekday shows, Monday through Friday. And, you're responsible essentially for going to drive to all of these different small towns essentially to go find sports stories and cover sports games. And, the job description wasn't all that clear cut because you don't know what you're getting yourself into until you get there, but all because you really want to be on air. And, it was special because it was very informative and it was very challenging and rewarding because of that. But at the same time, man, I went from big city San Diego to small town Abilene in a hot second, and it was culture shock for sure. But I was there for about a year, and I made connections with a lot of coaches out there, which in turn has helped me to where I am doing what I'm doing currently, because a lot of those coaches in the mix of Texas high school football still coach today in these various teams and schools that I go cover as at a regional level. And then, all that, work experience I got kind of motivated me and pushed me to the next position in Austin, which was a 30, I think it was 38 market, or market 38. And that was a little bit better just because the city was a little bit different and, the environment was a little bit different, but each stair you climb on this road to your end goal is, the view gets a little bit better. I think that's kind of my dad's saying. And, I think that the biggest takeaway and advice I'd give to not just females in this position, but just anyone is patience is so important. And I have to remind myself that even to this day, post-COVID, I think was probably the biggest stress our industry, at least sports broadcast, took on, kind of the general normalcy. And, even this year doing sports broadcast was really hard. My job was not what it used to be. And that taught me a lot about just understanding that this business changes so much day to day. And it tested the patience a lot. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be patience, because obviously you want things to happen right away, and it just doesn't work like that. You got to really do with what you got. If you don't have the reps, sit at your desk with a nice backdrop and talk about sports topics that the pros are talking about, or make do with the resources you have on hand. And like I said, I was talking to a prospective young female in this business and giving her the same advice, because if you don't have that persistence and that resilience to kind of stick with it, you're not going to get to where you want to go, because this industry will then eat you alive in short. But yeah, being able to be tough and stick it out, that's kind of life though. It's not just this particular business. And I think if you love it that much and you love, the idea of what you want to accomplish, then it's worth fighting for.
I think that you brought up a really good point there. I get asked all the time with either Syracuse or kids who are from my high school, or local kids here, or even kids that listen to me when I was doing radio back in Cleveland, and they say, Jeff, how do I get a radio show? How do I start my own podcast? How do you do this? I said, listen, and I'm not trying to sound old, but every single day the technology gets easier and easier. We are old. We definitely are. You see the gray in my beard. It's coming in.
I don't have any of that, but
and I think that every single day it makes it easier for people to get themselves, at least in broadcasting, their own brand. Like I started this podcast with, now granted, I bought a computer for it, but you could do it off your laptop. I've got a ring light I got for free. I've got a webcam I found. I bought this mic to do YouTube covers like 10 years ago. None of those are around anymore, so don't worry. I'm not singing any songs today anymore, at least.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, that's the end of the podcast. We're going to do a duet.
And cut.
And then you have your phone that is a video source. I mean, you put it so honestly. It's like if you have a backdrop, make your own little sports show. Put it up on YouTube, because as a potential employer, someone's going to see that and say, okay, they're skilled, we know that, but now look at them. They're putting in this little extra effort on their own. So what are they going to do if I pay them?
Yeah.
Because
I think the other part too is, when it's not just the resources, because you can have all these fancy gadgets and make it look really high quality. And obviously that's essentially the goal eventually. But, the biggest piece of advice I got when I was in Austin was, how do you separate, I don't want to listen to a reporter saying the same copy paste thing every report they do. How do you make yourself stand out based on your words? How do you creatively tell a story and keep people hooked? It's not about the gear. It's not about the gadgets. It's about the words coming from your opinions, your perspective, your experience. And those things are what separate you from, the herd to be someone really valuable. And then of course, have a lot of potential in. So I think that was my biggest challenge overcoming, was really finding my own voice and being able to be creatively different, but still telling a very informationally driven story. Obviously we're still journalists. We're still telling the story. So you got to be to have the facts right. You got to tell it in order and those kinds of things. But, to separate yourself, you really got to put a unique spin on it and be yourself, because no one else is going to be you. I'm not going to be the next, Molly McGrath or Sam Ponder, because I'm not them. I'm going to be me, but in a much more refined and polished form.
Preach. Absolutely preach. I face that all the time. I face that all the time in radio because I come into positions where I'm not the traditional radio host, and I hear it from people all the time. Oh, this guy, he doesn't have the voice, or boy, what is going on with the new show? He keeps making fun of himself, or he's so goofy. He's so like he's not taking like I have the greatest job on earth.
What do you mean?
I know. Like I don't have to take myself too seriously so that you can listen and take me seriously, because I'll have one day where I'm laughing about the story with my sister and driving her home in high school, and then the next story I can tell is about my experiences with having my grandmother move in with me and my family when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Yeah. And giving people that perspective is so important. Like with the incredible story you did about Coach Jeff Walker over at Liberty Hill, the one that ultimately won you. I do my research, come on. And I've watched it about 50 times. And when you did that story, it was such a beautiful story of a man fighting for his life and coaching this team and the spirit of the town and the team behind him. And that's heavy stuff. That's not, oh yeah, this freshman scored 4 touchdowns today. Let's talk to him. Oh, I just want to thank my mom and dad. Wow, that's such a great story. How cool. I cried when I listened to that story and watched that story. And a lot of people did too, and it deserved the recognition because of the time you spent. But you need to be able to have that perspective to be the host of the show and laugh and joke and have some fun when the Rangers are having a tough year and you need to make light of some stuff. And also the other perspective of being a reporter that can tell a story, can draw out emotions without, well, quite frankly, asking for it. If you try too hard to make me cry, I'm going to see right through it. Right. And that's not just with my journalism program, or with my background. I think it really speaks to, you just got to tell it the way Sarah would tell it.
I think also too, the versatility piece, not just on what you're able to do, in a story, whether you're telling a really upbeat story or something really heavy, being able to do both is super important, but just on the skill set aspect as well, being able to be versatile and know, my biggest challenge in giving people advice is obviously it's way more glamorous to want to go to a big city right out of college and get, the professional sport background as opposed to working your way up through, local level news. The biggest challenge for those people is they're never going to see all working facets of the industry. And having been through local news and local sports, I had to shoot my own video. I had to drive all over the place. I had to edit my own video. I had to work on timelines. I had to write my own scripts for hosting. I had to write my own stories for reporting, every little bit. And then on top of that, because you have to go through those steps, you also see what the executive producer is doing to format the rest of the show. You see what the technical director's doing to make sure all the pieces of your story work. You see, the graphics editor, you see this, that, and the other. And so all of a sudden you become, I don't want to say, what is that? What's that phrase? You're not, what's the phrase I'm getting at? The skilled at one, but good at many.
Master of none, basically.
Yeah, there we go. That phrase.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it too.
One, master of none.
Right.
But you become instead a very well-rounded, asset. And I think that's overlooked. I mean, being able to be a one-man band is so important, because then, down the road when you have the ability to have producers tell you what they want in their show, well, then you can have dialogue and say, hey, what about this idea? Or what do you think about this? A couple weeks ago, I had one of our football producers ask me about doing something for their show. It was essentially going to be a post-game synopsis of what had happened. And because the turn time on the game was going to be so close to the start of the show, it really wasn't effectively timely for me to go do what he needed me to do to then come back and prepare something so that they could have enough time to edit it before going on air. And I just said, you know what? I mean, we can get those interviews. That's no problem. What if we just went live? And sometimes it's a different perspective. And he didn't have the perspective I did because I'm on the ground, I'm there. And I offered this suggestion. He said, you know what? That's an awesome idea. Let's try it. And we've been doing it since. So the communication aspect of being able to see, hey, I know my producer is going to be crunched for time if I do these things.
and don't get it to him on time, then that's on me because he is relying on me to do something. Well, let me just make it easier and we can just do something different, or, you know, try it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But again, back to the original topic of being well-rounded, I think that's so important. And really that starts at ground level. And, you know, I know it's so hard for people to want to skip the dirty work part, but it is really crucial, especially in this particular industry, that's for sure.
Well, you gain perspective. I think that's so important, and you're able to have that dialogue, but you're also able to appreciate the graphics editor because you had to do that for Citrus TV back at Syracuse University. You had to do, you know, every little thing to lead up to where you are. So when something doesn't come through, you're not just the angry reporter yelling about it. You're like, okay, I get what the issues they could have faced. I mean, I interned on morning radio, I produced morning radio, and now I would never ever say anything to somebody without having the perspective. If I'm upset about something that they might not have done correctly, I would say, hey, listen, I know exactly what you're going through, but how can you streamline the process better in order for you to get what we need when we need it? Because I was in your shoes, and here's how I would do it.
It also makes you grateful and appreciative for all of the behind the scenes work that happens that is going on to make you look good. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, it goes both ways. Like, it can make you look bad at times, but also when everything goes right, it makes you look really good.
Right.
So you got to be appreciative to those people because they're doing everything in their power to do their job correctly too.
Right. Well, even when you just posted about your Emmy win with the story with the coach, it was you were showing appreciation to all those who worked on it. And you even said, if I'm not mistaken, like, this one's extra special because of all the work that I got to do with these amazing people. And I think that is, you're humble, you're skilled, and it's just important for people to remember that when they get to the next level. And I think you will continue to remember that wherever you end up, whether it's when you get to that national gig that I know. I just hope you remember us little people.
Oh my gosh, you're going to be the first one I call. What do you mean?
I hope so. So Sarah, I wanted to get into just one more thing that I get all the time, and I'm sure you get it too. And you mentioned being yourself, and I think that's so important. But do you know how many times in my career I have been asked, can you give me your radio voice?
Yeah, people ask me, can you turn it on? It's like, do you wear clothes to work in the morning? I mean, yes.
What do you mean? I'm talking like I talk all the time. Like, yeah, okay, I'm doing a podcast right now. This is how I would do the morning radio, but I'm also like, I'm just amping it a tiny bit. Like, I'm just putting it on a shelf here and just leaving it there. Like, I'm not.
A little bit more posture, a little bit
like,
more.
You're not gonna get the Jeff watching Netflix on his own like this voice because this is boring. And I have that all the time. Hey, can you get me a snack? Like, no, that's not like. You're also not gonna get the voice I talk to my dog in.
Yes. Facts.
Because that is something nobody should hear. But
go ahead. No,
I was gonna say I've
I've
deleted videos of me talking to Pirate. Like, I'm like with him, and I'm like, man, I sound like an idiot. So I'll just mute it and post it. But for you, do you get that a lot as a reporter because you've got an incredible tone and cadence to your voice? But are people like, is that your real voice? Is that how you really talk?
You know, it is so funny you actually mentioned this because I'll occasionally, I don't know about you, but I'm super nostalgic. So when I get in that like mood, I'll look back at videos or photos or whatever from Syracuse days. I have this one particular video that I know where it lives on YouTube and from Citrus TV. And it was my very first on-camera report, like on-camera stand-up. It's like cringy how awful I looked in this particular stand-up. But I was holding the microphone like way down here. I sounded, my voice tone, because I know over the course of X number of years, I've dropped my voice tone a lot because no one wants to listen to like screechy, like female screechy. That's not cute.
Or male screechy either. I've been there.
Well, regardless of regardless of who you are, people want to hear like
lower decibels.
Right.
It's calming. That's why they put those things on the call maps. It's like those really low, slow conversations.
Right. They don't have Gilbert Gottfried reading you a good night story on the call map, okay? They have Matthew McConaughey for a reason.
Yes, exactly. Right? You got to get those people. Yeah.
Right.
So this particular clip I was watching back, and my voice is so high and so fast. It was, oh gosh, it was so hard to watch back, thinking, I thought that was good. That was my very first one, and I thought that was good. But it just shows how far you can go. And, I don't necessarily think, I don't know about you, but I never had voice coaching in school, or no one ever said, hey, do this or do that in terms of voice cadence. But it's something you kind of pick up because you'll listen back and you say, okay, that sounds weird. I feel like I should probably do something different. But over time, I know that my voice is definitely lowered, and there's a lot more pauses. Even though it sounds really slow to me, it doesn't sound slow to other people. So it's funny you bring that up, because yes, I think I definitely have an on-air voice that is professional, but I don't necessarily think it's fake. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Just, that's how I talk.
I agree with you tenfold. And yeah. I think that when Jeff or Sarah are at a party, that we're at the party.
Yes.
No matter how many people are at the party.
I don't know about you, but normally my laugh gives it away. That's probably
my
calling card.
My laugh is so atrocious. I listened back to
awesome.
it.
What are you talking about?
One of my producers in radio once did a super cut of just me laughing, and it was like 45 seconds of me laughing. It is gone in the internet. I mean, I was gonna ask permission. Can I play back? Can you send me that YouTube video? And when I put this all together, can I play back your first stand-up?
Me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes!
Yeah, of course you can.
All right.
Well, but if you do that, you have to do like a side-by-side of like my very first one, and then like something more recent.
Okay, so definitely.
I don't sound totally incompetent in my job, but
I think I'm going to add a clip from the coach Jeff Walker for sure.
Yes, I love it.
So I'll definitely splice that in for some perspective.
Okay, good.
And I'll maybe embarrass myself with some of my old clips too, because
it's only fair. I mean,
oh my gosh, I was so atrocious. Did you know?
Oh, go ahead.
This is when I knew I wasn't going to be a journalist like you. It's because I was in a class at Syracuse, and I had Professor Hub Brown, and it was a serious journalism class. Like, for those that don't know, when you study broadcasting, like, I went into morning radio, and I used my broadcast degree every day to do what I love, but at the end of the day, I'm not, like, making packages and writing stories like yourself and a lot of our friends, but I was told by Professor Brown that I could be a serious reporter if I wanted to, but my first story was about a woman who got caught selling her prescription drugs in DeWitt, New York, peddling her prescription drugs. So I wrote the story, and the headline was, "Peddling Prescription Drugs. Don't do it." Because it was in DeWitt, New York, so don't do it. Don't do it.
That's so not journalism.
Not even close. And then...
Oh, that's amazing, though.
And
that's
then,
so creative. See, I would have never thought of something like that.
Yeah, that's because you're a journalist, and you're not a moron like I think all the time.
Just creative liberty to be more fun.
Well, yeah, and that, like, just this morning on Jeff and Amy in the Morning here in Las Vegas, we are giving away Cirque du Soleil tickets because it's back in Vegas. Thank goodness, shows are back open.
I'm
and I created a game called Cirque du Soleil or Nay. And I'm going to describe a show, and you have to tell me whether it's an actual Cirque du Soleil show or not, and or nay. And yeah, this is the kind of stuff I get to do at work.
I love that, though. That's so cool. I as much as I love doing my job, and very, very much about the facts, about the stories. And I think the storytelling part has definitely become more of my favorite part of the job because I get to do it in such a broad scope. But I wish that I had the creative gene to just come up with stuff. Maybe not creative, but like the witty on the spot gene. We have this play-by-play guy for the Rangers. His name's Dave Raymond, and he was a former stand-up comedian.
And he has me laughing all game. You have to at some point to entertain your fans, right? But he just has the sharpest wit, the great one-liners, and man, that's what entertaining should be about. And sometimes I wish I had that gene like you do.
Well, I think it's so important. And I told students at Syracuse all the time, like, be well-rounded and be okay with it, because the best Sports Center anchors in the world there are the ones referencing all of the top 40 songs that are out right now, all of the biggest movies. So it's okay to be fun and have a good time and enjoy yourself while you're doing our job. Now, should you, when an 86-year-old woman is going to jail in DeWitt, New York, make a pun about it in the lead? Probably not. I don't advise, because
it's okay. It's okay. The morning paper might not have benefited from your wit, but the morning show probably did. So
exactly.
In full circle, you did the right thing.
100%. And that was episode 1 of me not becoming a hard journalist. Then in Randy Wenner's class, there was the Jersey Boys were coming to Syracuse for a tour, and I was assigned with doing this entertainment news story about the Syracuse Theater downtown, having them come. And so to open the actual radio bit, I sang a song from Jersey Boys, but changed the lyrics to talk about when it was coming back. And he played it for the whole class and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is an example of being very creative at the beginning of a story. Now, Jeff, do I advise you do this every time? No." I said, okay, all right. I think that means you liked it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
See recently? Unrelated, sorry.
What happened?
Jason Benetti.
Legend.
He was doing play-by-play for the Chicago White Sox, because their first road trip of the entire season was the last homestand whatever for the Rangers. And so Jason got to go on the road. He was up in the Globe Life Field press box and everything. So I stopped by because I was reporting for the White Sox series. Got to stop by and say hello, and oh man, it was so fun, full circle. And I shook his hand. I'm like, I don't know if you remember me, but I directed a bunch of your classes at Syracuse. He goes, "Are you kidding me? You're the one that saved our show."
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's definitely not true, but I'm so glad you remembered me.
Jason Benetti, he is crushing it right now.
He's killing it. It's so cool to see
I
that.
think there's 2 of him. Because I'll see him one moment he's doing a game, then he's across the country, he's doing another game, then he's doing baseball, then he's doing basketball. I'm like, man,
he cloned himself. He figured out the technology to do so.
You know what? And talk about people who are well-rounded. That guy reads more books about things that are not sports. He is like a law genius. He's got the mind like nobody I've ever met before, and his references are so deep cut. It's beautiful.
So I mean, they're so well prepared. It's amazing. Yeah, he's definitely one of the gems in this industry, and very fun to run into those kinds of people and have that good rapport even after college. And kind of, I mean, he was our professor in college, and now we're work professional colleagues. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, and the funny part, I remember when he got his first game, and he called With My Dad on ESPN. And the first thing he said was, I know your son, all this stuff. And I had already talked to Dad about him because I had listened to him when he was in Syracuse doing games, and he was a professor at the university. So I already bragged how good he was.
So cool.
And so, Jason Benetti, I'm glad we got him.
Did Dad ever tell you about the story of me meeting him for the first time in a professional work experience?
I do believe so. A lot of people like you tell me all the time, they're like, how do I go up and be like, I'm Jeff's friend? What do I say? Especially in a professional setting, I have friends all the time. Jay Alter, Jason Benetti, yourself. Like, you told me that story. Yeah, I loved hearing that.
Clubhouse, and I'm so unprepared in Surprise, Arizona, of all places, and I am so unprepared to walk up to your dad and say hello. And I think I texted you or called you or something, and I'm like, what do I do? I have to say hello before he leaves, otherwise it'll be really weird.
And that's one of those things too, where I would find out eventually through the grapevine that you were in a clubhouse with him and you didn't say hey. And I'm like,
yeah, that would have been even worse. I have no problem being that person to go out of my way to be awkwardly uncomfortable to go say hello.
Yeah.
But as soon as I say hello, I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would have regretted it.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty fun. And he, I forget what he was out there for. Maybe it was Lance Land, or I don't know. It doesn't matter. He was out there for some story, and I felt honored to be in the same clubhouse as your dad.
Well, that's sweet. That's sweet. Well, he was excited to meet you too, and excited to hear of your successes, because he remembers the days of me talking about all my Syracuse friends, you being one of them, and to see you doing so well. And mind you, my birthplace of Dallas, Texas, I have to say.
You gotta come out and visit the birthplace. It's gotten a little different since you were here last.
Just a little bit. Just moved in 1995. Things have changed just a tad, but
at all. It's fine. It's
Sarah,
it's a little cooler out here now than it was maybe 3 weeks ago, so we're okay with that.
It's beautiful Texas weather. You got Friday night football. I could literally talk to you, Sarah, for hours. Maybe we'll have to have you back on the pod because I wanna hear all of your small town football stories. You're like living the life of Friday Night Lights when you were in Abilene. Like I loved getting a chance to catch up with you. Let's do it again. And let's hear more from you. And if anybody wants to reach out to Sarah, you can at Sarah Maryfield. Reach out to her. She's a great resource. She's given me career advice, and she can help you out as well. And I'm so happy, proud of you, just honored that you would be on my show. So I appreciate it.
You're so sweet. I'm happy to anytime, and always happy to help anyone that's prospectively looking to get into sports and journalism or just to chat. So Jeff, thank you.
There she is. Oh, it was a good time. You're going to have to send this to your brothers because you were talking very highly of them.
Application submitted.
Right. Best sister ever. Check. Thanks, Sarah.